Hi everyone, I'm Josh.
And I'm Jim, and this is the Dapper Meeple.
This show is about our love of gaming, the games we play, and the gaming community around this passion.
So grab some snacks, pull up a chair, and join us at the table with your monocle and bowler hat. Hey kids, remember, this is an adult podcast and may contain adult language.
Also, the Dapper Meeple outfit, not required.
We're back to talk about corporate greed and our friend, Swen Vincke.
We're also going to talk about a win for some individuals over at Asmodee, and say goodbye to a TSR legend.
In our games we play, we gather our fellow toys and venture into the closet to save our boy from the Boogeyman in Stuff of Legend.
And lastly, in our crowdfunding roundup, we've got some projects that are going to be a real hit at the table for your next game day with friends.
All that and more on this episode of the Dapper Meeple.
Hey everybody, welcome back. We're just going to go ahead and kick off this show with some really important information.
Swen Vincke
is pissed off.
Yeah, if you guys have seen any of the recent news that has come out, his I don't think it's tirade quite qualifies as maybe what it is, but whatever the step down from that is.
Right. He was calling the publishers out. That's what he was doing.
Yeah.
To be clear, this was directed at video game publishers.
Yeah.
But it could easily be pointed to other people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So Sven was accepting an award on behalf of Baldur's Gate 3 for Best Narrative Gameplay, which, if you haven't played Baldur's Gate 3, the narrative play is great. The story is great for every character. Most of your romances now have been fixed. Some of them still a little weird. That's on you. I mean,
they're working as intended.
Okay, all right. That's not a bug. Never mind. Overall, we've all seen that this has been a great game that's come out, and it's won awards after awards after awards. And good old
Swen Vincke
was accepting an award, and here's what Sven had to say.
Sven was accepting the Game Developer's Choice Award for Best Narrative for Baldur's Gate 3. Also, Jim can say his name. He just thinks it's funnier to let the internet do it for him, and he's committed to the bit.
Greed has been this whole thing up for so long. I've been fighting publishers my entire life, and I keep on seeing the same mistakes over and over. It's always the quarterly profits. The only thing that matters are the numbers, and then you fire everybody, and then the next year you say, shit, I'm out of developers, and then you start hiring people again. Then you go through acquisitions, and then you put them in the same loop again, and it's just broken. You don't have to. You can make reserves. Just slow down a bit, slow down on the greed, be resilient, take care of the people. Don't lose the institutional knowledge that's been built up in the people that you lose every single time. So you have to go through the same cycle over and over. It really pisses me off. And I think that's a sentiment a lot of us can echo.
Yeah, absolutely. We see it a lot. Obviously, he's coming from the video game publishing side, but we see a lot with, especially as big as the board game market has become, with acquisitions and kind of mergers. And we talked about Wizards of the Coast in all the shenanigans that they've been doing in the past year or so, maybe longer. We see it on the board game side as well.
Right. For video game publishers, this has been something that's been real common in the last couple of years, where they'll make a big game and then they'll fire the staff. And I think a lot of it is, I'm no financial expert, but when we start getting into that corporate mindset, and that corporate mindset is beginning to run how our games are produced, it's all about that bottom line, and cutting out 10, 12, 1,000 people really cuts a lot of your expense.
Absolutely. I'm glad that he is getting a platform to say these things because of the success from their game. Right. I think this is a message that you don't hear very often from designers. But given the success of Baldur's Gate 3 and, the studio that has come in and they have not only had the initial success, but also done a lot of updates, done a lot of back-end work to make sure that, hey, these things are fixed, these things are added, that sort of thing. and then coming on the heels of them saying that, hey, that's it. We're not going to, do any additional add-ons. We're not going to do any kind of expansions or follow-ups to it. I think this is a very interesting time for him, but I'm glad it gives a platform for somebody who obviously cares so deeply about what they do.
Yep. And Larian Studios did have a couple of hits before they got the Baldur's Gate thing. Divinity and Divinity 2 were really big, still real popular. And that's another thing that we were just getting ready to talk about is that Larian Studios is stepping away from Baldur's Gate 3.
Yep.
They were working a DLC was what was reported, and they're like, nope, we're done. So no DLC, no Baldur's Gate 4, at least not from Larian Studios.
Yeah. With
this rant, a lot of people, of course, assumed that part of the reason Larian was stepping away was because of Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro's business practices.
Yep.
Which you can't blame us. You can't blame us for thinking that. Again, I want to remind everybody, these dudes sent the Pinkertons after a guy who got sold the wrong box of Magic cards.
Yep.
The Pinkertons. Nobody should be surprised that everybody on this side in the gaming community saw that and went, yeah. I'd leave them too. Mm-hmm. But Sven did jump on later on, and he kind of cleared Wizards' name, at least as far as that whole situation goes.
Yeah, we still have the Pinkertons.
Yeah. We're still going to be mad about that for a while, guys. But he jumped on. He was like, hey, I've been reading the Reddit threads. I would like to clear something up. Wizards of the Coast is not to blame for us taking a different direction. On the contrary, they did their best. They've been a great licensor for us, letting us do our thing. This is because it's what's best for Larian, which is cool because I don't think they need Baldur's Gate to continue to be successful.
No, I do think it has given them the ability to really do what they want to do.
Right,
which is what they did with Baldur's Gate 3. Like, they made that game the way they wanted to make it. And I think that just shows that the ability for success is there with that studio, regardless of really what the property is that they touch.
Right.
So I'm excited to see what Larian does, in maybe a few years before we get the next game out of them. But I'll definitely be there looking forward to seeing what comes out.
And just a quick message to
Swen Vincke.
If you're listening and you ever want to come on and talk to a D-List podcast, we are more than happy to have you.
Absolutely. We take all guests.
Yeah. Equal opportunity. So moving on, I thought that was a big one. I feel like there's a big crossover just because that is a Dungeons and Dragons, IP.
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of people who play the pen and paper that are into video games have also jumped on that.
Hopefully. If they haven't, you should try it out.
Yeah, give it a shot. Give it a shot. Another big one that I saw, this article popped up. Miniature Market is a pretty well-known online site for games, game accessories, all the good stuff that we like. They were owned by Asmodee. I didn't know that.
Yeah. I remember when they acquired them, because I remember it being kind of towards the beginning of what some people would consider Asmodee's BBEG arc. Mm-hmm. Where they started buying up all these smaller properties and publishers and things. So I remember when it happened. And Miniature Market also, they're not just an online store. They also had, they did have a bunch of locations. I believe they're down to one physical location.
Where they are right now, yes.
Yeah. But still, they're headquartered out of Missouri. They are a fantastic place to go for online shopping.
Asmodee no longer owns them.
Yep. They
sold off Miniature Market to two of their longtime managers / executives. That's Christophe Arnault, who was actually the founder of Asmodee LLC back in 2005, and Maud Decombe, which she has worked with the company. I think it was 2022. She's been working with them. They were selling it off just because their parent company, or Asmodee's parent company, which is Embracer, they're another one that it's a corporation that's hurting right now, and they're trying to come up with a plan to fix that. But Asmodee is their shining star, which again goes to show how popular and how big the board game side has become, especially for a company like Asmodee. They're such a well-known name, but it has surpassed their video game department. So we're here to stay, baby. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, this is one of those things, though, where it's almost the opposite way from what we usually see, right? Usually a large corporation comes in, buys out the little guy, adds him to their conglomerate, and then, what we're seeing is two actual employees able to buy that part of the business back, which I think is fantastic. I think that shows that, one, it's a great opportunity for Miniature Market to be successful and continue to be successful, and be able to be individual in their approach and plan as well. I feel like sometimes when you get involved in these conglomerates, kind of like what we see from Wizards of the Coast being part of Hasbro, we see sometimes that the business decisions that would probably benefit the consumer of Wizards of the Coast better are not taken because they are overridden by the business decisions of Hasbro.
I think Miniatures Market is going to continue to do well under these two. They both seem like they're really dedicated.
Both of them have experience with the actual high-end operations of Miniature Market. That was a sector that both of them were involved in with Asmodee. This really just makes sense. They know the business. They're able to run it. So I foresee good things for Miniature Market going down the road.
For the companies out there that are doing well, always cheering them on, because we know there's so many others that I feel like I don't want to do business with anymore, much like Snakes and Lattes here in Virginia Beach. If you haven't heard, this might be your first episode. They were a local gaming cafe. They're part of a chain based out of Canada. Came in, bought up the local game cafe. A year later, they fired their entire staff, no notice, stuff like that. It was legal, but it was a crappy thing to do. And the gaming community here, we've taken it personally, and we're taking on one of the biggest game cafe chains in the world. So yeah, that's the same kind of thing, man. Especially in the gaming sphere, where for the most part we try to be fair. We're kind of accustomed to rules and bending them at times, and I get that, but if you don't treat our people right, I don't care who you are, you don't deserve our business.
Yeah.
So last thing we want to do real quick before we finish out our opening here is we're going to have to say a goodbye to James Ward. While Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson were writing the rules behind Dungeons and Dragons, he was part of the early Greyhawk campaign that Gygax ran.
Yeah.
He ended up working for over 20 years as a game designer. He wrote some really important literature that came out to kind of expand the first version of D&D. Gods, Demigods, and Heroes was his. He also did the Metamorphosis Alpha game system, which was kind of the first sci-fi game system.
Yeah.
And what I know him from is AD&D, which was D&D 2nd Edition.
Yep.
He wrote the Deities and Demigods book, which was one of my favorites, just because I got into the whole Pantheon thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but he did pass. Luke Gygax did have a tribute to him, I think, at GaryCon. He posted about it, just to kind of say goodbye. But we just wanted to mention it and say our goodbyes. And yeah, the rest of us will keep playing.
There are no more tears to cry. Then it's time to say goodbye. Goodbye.
Next up, games we play. The Stuff of Legend. Designed by Kevin Wilson, with art by Charles Paul Wilson III. Published by Third World Studios Games. The year is 1944, and Allied forces are fighting on the war-torn continent of Europe. Back in Brooklyn, another battle will begin when a young boy is snatched from his bed and taken into the realm of the dark. The players take on the role of the boy's playthings, his toys, which come to life in an attempt to pull off an amazing rescue. As they journey into the realm of the dark, they face the minions, the Boogeyman, including bitter and forgotten toys, as well as a possible traitor in their own midst. This assembly must work together by using their own unique abilities to scour the realm in hopes of finding the boy before the Boogeyman can escape with him. They will travel through several locations and take on mighty challenges that may help or hinder their effort. And with each flip of the Boogeyman's coin, the boy may slip further away, or the shadows may draw closer around the toys, hampering their efforts. In the end, saving the boy is the difference between the loyal toys winning the day or having it lost to the Boogeyman and those loyal to the darkness.
So we picked this game up at Gen Con, and we were looking at it on the Kickstarter beforehand, and I think we made the conscious decision that we're going to Gen Con, and we'll see if it's there.
Yes, which that list is getting very large for this year, too. I'm glad we drive to Indianapolis. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
like we'd have to check another bag or so.
We were fortunate because when we got there, like it had all the Kickstarter goodies with it, I think.
Yeah, this is the Kickstarter special edition.
Right, the Boogeyman edition.
Yeah.
What I really liked about this game and what drew me to it in the first place was the kind of the theme and the artwork.
Yes, it is a very unique theme when it comes to board games. Obviously, we've seen this in Toy Story and what was it? The Indian in the Closet?
Yeah.
Or Indian in the Cupboard.
Cupboard to cupboard.
There it is.
Yeah, I was going to say, the closet was the Narnia thing. That's a whole different...
It's crazy when you like start mixing in your genres. But yeah, so in the story, if you guys haven't read this story, basically a kid gets kidnapped by the Boogeyman.
In 1944.
In 1944.
That's important.
To the art style, yes. And his toys band together with his ever faithful dog and delve into the closet to try and rescue him.
And we picked it up, and like a lot of other games that we have, was neatly stored in our shelves in the game room until we got a chance to break it out and play it. I'm glad we picked this one up. So, first of all, what I love is, like you said, this has kind of got that Toy Story feel.
Yeah.
But I think it's got a little bit more like homicidal tendencies into it. Your cards that you get on one hand that are your character cards or your hero sheets, on one side is a picture of the toy, and then when you flip it over, it is the reimagined version that they kind of take on when they get into the closet.
Yeah.
So the teddy bear is all sweet, and then you flip it over, and it's a grizzly that's going to chew your face off with a cute bow. The ballerina pulls out some Glocks or something. I don't know. It's again, I like the art style to it. So this game, semi-cooperative, hand management's important. There is a hidden traitor mechanic. The group has to vote because the group has to stay together whenever you move across the board.
Yep.
And like we said, there are the variable player powers that come into play.
Yeah. Some people have likened this, probably mostly because of Hidden Traitor, to something like Battlestar Galactica or Shadows over Camelot.
Okay.
Which are two very well-known like hidden traitor mechanic type games.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this one was really fun. I like it. Almost has kind of like a dungeon crawl-esque kind of feel as you're working your way across the map and flipping over stuff and encountering different things. And that was kind of the feel that I got as we were playing it. So the goal is to find the exit off the map. There are 4 exits. They are randomized, what number might be under them, and you are looking for either the exit with the highest number, or if 7 and 1 are on the board, exit number 1 is the correct exit.
So it keeps you guessing. You do have the opportunity as you play different cards or different areas may give you a chance to peek at one of the exits.
Yeah.
So when somebody gets that or plays that, they look at it and put it back down. You got to make sure not to show anybody else. And this is where they keep that hidden traitor mechanic alive.
Yeah.
Because whenever you peek that or you peek an encounter, like we'll talk about in a second, you know what it is. You can put it down. You can tell the group they can't see it, but if you're the traitor, it could be anything.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the traitor mechanic and how they implement that, because I think that is very cool on how they do it. So based on how many players you have, and it's a 3 to 6 player game, will determine how many loyalty cards you have. The first thing you do is you have loyalty to the boy or loyalty to the boogeyman. You take those 2 cards, shuffle them up, and put one of them in the unused loyalty card on the board. Then you deal out the rest of them. Depending how many people you have, you'll have a certain number of the loyalty to the boogeyman, certain number of loyalty to the boy, and then you've got special cards that go in there. One of them, which again is my favorite part of this, is the Colonel's Rifle.
Yeah.
If somebody gets that, they get a special card and they get a token that is the Colonel's Rifle, and then they get a loyalty to the boy card to play later. The Colonel's Rifle allows you to shoot a minion from one space away and take them out. And it has some other effects, but then you pass it to the next person. The toys diving into this child's closet from his room picked up an Enfield. I don't know the story because this is all based on a comic book.
Yeah. I don't know if the Colonel was also a toy.
In the New York Times best-selling graphic novel, which the game is based on, the Colonel is the boy's toy soldier who rallies the rest of the group to chase the Boogeyman into the dark. He is based off the World War I U.S. soldiers commonly referred to as doughboys. And while the standard issue rifle for the U.S. Army at the time was the Springfield 1907, most U.S. troops in Europe were armed with the 1917 Enfield. So the toys didn't get the rifle from someone storing it improperly, but from the Colonel, who brought his along.
It looks like a big gun. You know what I'm saying? Like, it looks full size.
Yeah.
So I kind of like that. The party has a single marker that moves around the board because the party has to stay together. So when it comes time to do things, the party gets a chance to vote.
Yeah.
Right? Movement, what we're going to do, who's going to play next, that kind of thing. And like Josh said, your goal is to get across the board to find the right exit. Yeah.
Yeah, the voting mechanic for me had a feel kind of like almost like social deduction.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of how it felt, very much like Avalon or I can't think of the name of it on the top of my head, but where you would like go out on missions and then you would vote to see whether the mission succeeded or failed. And, you know, so that's kind of the way the trader can influence what happens.
Right.
I will say the one thing that I didn't really like about the trader mechanic is there's no like benefit to being revealed. Right. So a lot of games that have a trader mechanic, once the trader like eventually outs themselves, because that has to happen at some point in the game, there isn't like all of a sudden a benefit or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
So it's still the same game. You know, it just is what it is.
Yeah.
In fact, if anything, they're more disadvantaged at that point.
I get that. I think the thing that changes that, though, is the ease at which the trader can move. Like, that trader card can move to somebody else.
Sure.
There is a card that you can play called Muddy the Waters, where you get to pick another player, take their card, shuffle them up, and then give them back whatever cards you have. There's also cards that play on the board that will cause you to have to take that first card that you laid down, the hidden loyalty card, and look at it or switch it depending on which card you got. So you may be the trader, but halfway through the game you have to switch, or vice versa.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that is probably the reason why it's not in there, because of how fluid that is.
Mm-hmm.
But still, that was one of the main things that I noticed that is different from most other like trader games.
Right. So for the actual gameplay, like I said, you all move as a group. You decide where you want to go. You're starting off in Brooklyn because, I mean, what's more Ameritrash than Brooklyn, baby? You reveal any spaces that are adjacent to you. There are location cards sitting there. You flip those over, and they may do something. It may be like, hey, add 2 of the minions, which are the Boogeyman's troops, onto the card. Mm-hmm. It could be just, hey, discard this. Don't worry about it. It could be something crazy like every round you're going to add a troop. Stuff like that. Yeah. And we decide how we go. I really like the way they do the actions. You have what's called bridge off the side, right? And it's got 3 places for a mini or a standee or whichever you're using. 3 of us get to make a choice on what we're doing.
Yep.
If you're playing like a 4 or 5 or 6 player game, the 3 players get to go, and then they move into the exhausted box. Then the enemies get to go, and they could move towards you. They do have generals that can do their own thing. All of those get to activate. Yeah. And then it comes back to us. The people that are exhausted cannot go again until whoever is left plays. Yeah. So we played a 4-player game. So the first 3 would act, enemies would act, and then whoever was left had to be the first player. Yeah. So it was something you had to keep in consideration when you're like, you can move or hide. Hiding is great because there's the Boogeyman at the top of the board, and he's got 2 tracks underneath him. One of them is the awareness track, which determines how far away the bad guys can hear you, essentially. Yeah. Right? There's a lot of things that happen, and it says it'll activate if it's within your attention, the attention ring. So if you only have 1, it's only things adjacent to you. If you have 2, and we've been lucky never to get it to 3. Yeah. Also with that, where the Boogeyman is sitting on that track determines how many hit points his minions have. Mm-hmm. So that's something you got to keep track of. Hiding will move him down 1. There's a couple ways to move him down. There's some cards you can play. Things you do, like if you light off an Enfield in the closet, that's going to draw some attention. I can't get over it. I love the mechanic, but in my head, like thematically as a role player, I'm like, man, this teddy bear just grabbed a bolt action and charged in. So you get to move, you get to decide what you're going to do. When you move to a new space, it's already had the location shown to you. Underneath that location are encounter cards. And the encounter cards could be a general for the boogeyman. They could be more troops. They could be a task that you have to complete that will give you something, an advantage in the game.
Yeah, and I liked that element of it because it was always that, well, you never know what's going to happen unless there are some cards that allow you to peek underneath.
The action cards.
Yeah, and you can see exactly like what encounters are where. You can even swap two of them. We did come across, there's a couple encounters in there that even when you peek it, it goes off.
Right.
Which, yeah, I get it.
Yeah. You got us.
Yeah.
You got us.
But still.
Yeah.
So that was very interesting to find those as well.
Yeah. There is that is the scout action card.
Yep.
The cards each have little symbols on them. There's red, there's blue, and there's green. Blue is the scout. Red is fight, and green is talk or negotiate, basically. So those cards are what you use to play if you're not using the move or the hide action. Or if you get a task, the task acts as the action card.
Yep.
Right? And each of your character sheets has 2 symbols on it that match those 3. So when you play an action card, you get to use your symbols added onto it. So if I'm the bar, Max, and I play a fight card, I automatically get 2 more fight tokens added into that.
Yep.
Right? And then you can boost after that. You play your action card, and it says, hey, you need 6 fight to beat this. You can play the action card. I get my 2. I need 3 more. I play another one with a single symbol or like more than that on there. And then people can help you. The rest of your group be like, hey, I can assist. And you have to accept their assistance. They can't just throw the card down.
Yeah.
So that I really like that mechanic where you kind of work in there. And that's where, again, the trader can kind of mess you up.
Yeah. And speaking of the action cards, the other thing I really like about it is the stained mechanic.
Mm-hmm.
So there are some cards that are more powerful version of action cards, but they have like this kind of ink stain on them. And it means that action is stained. Each of the player characters have a spot on their board that says like, this happens when a stained card gets played or you get a stained action. And it's usually a negative effect.
Right. Like everybody has to discard one of a certain type of card from their hand. I think it was the ballerina Harmony. If she gets a stained action, anybody that was supposed to be taken out, any of the enemies, instead she gives them mercy so you don't kill anything. So it can be real dangerous to play a stained card. And there are times where it's okay to play one because it's not really going to affect you. That is their weakness. They also, every character has a strength that they get to play to. Like Harmony the ballerina. She can discard a card and stop us getting a wound once a turn. So the characters you play could make a big difference on the outcome of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes each of the characters feel different.
Yeah.
You know, they do a really good job of that in the game for sure.
So like we said, the goal is to get to the other side, try to figure out which exit you're going to take to save the boy. And while you're doing this the whole time, you're going to have to run through these encounters. Getting to the 4 different exits is not easy.
No, that's one thing I'd say. Short of being very fortunate, I don't know that it's... I don't know that it's quite possible to see all 4.
I feel like you're going to have to make a guess. Like you get an educated guess, but you're making a guess at some point.
For sure.
So, and then what keeps this whole thing on a timer is that the boy has his own track on the right side of the board. Every time somebody runs out of cards and they have to resupply, pull from the action deck to draw back up, there's a coin that you flip. And it has the boy's head on one side and the boogeyman on the other. If you land on the boy, he moves down the track.
Yep.
So closer and closer to the end, and finally there's the boy is lost.
Yep.
If you do land on the boogeyman, he has his own deck that you have to pull, and they're bad things. Basically, if you're flipping the coin, it's probably bad.
Oh yeah, it's bad.
Right. And the boogeyman stuff can be like, it can be crazy stuff. Like from now on, every card you play of this type is treated as a stained card.
Yep.
One of them is you can't vote anymore for the rest of the game. There's one that says that you can't use stained cards anymore.
Yeah.
All kinds of, basically it's bad. The boogeyman cards are always going to be bad. And some of them happen and you discard them. Some of them happen, you have to keep them. Some of them you have to give to somebody else. And then some of them actually affect everybody on the table, the sinister games. So that is your opposition that you're playing against. If something happens and you take wounds, some of his minions get to attack you. The wound track is 6 sections long. There's somebody has to take the wound and they discard 1 card. Then somebody 2 cards, then 3 cards, and then the last 3 are flip the coin.
Yeah.
So again, never good. It's never going to be good if you're flipping the coin.
Yeah.
So that's working against you because you've got to save the boy before he gets to the end. So you don't have the opportunity to check the whole board. There's no way you can do it without losing the boy. So that's basic gameplay. I had a lot of fun with it. Like you said, you never know what's going to happen. The area cards and the encounter cards are always shuffled and laid down. You're not going to know which one you're going to get to. Like, you may know what the cards are in the deck.
Yeah, theoretically. I mean, there's not an impossible amount of cards.
Right.
But yeah, every game's going to be different because you're going to have different combinations from locations and encounters. Some encounters you have multiple cards in them, so...
I think this is one of those games, too, and a lot of people have talked about it, that it's not for everybody. Some people feel like it's a little grindy, I guess, because you're just trying to make it, like, every step you've got to deal with an encounter.
Yeah.
But I liked it because I felt like you had options, right? The whole team is working together. You can decide who goes first. You can stack options a certain way. There are cards that let you just run.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, you're running into a new encounter, but we all make choices.
Yeah, I think the ability for others to play and assist as well, I think is a really big help for kind of making that feel better. Because at first, it's like, there's no way I'm going to be able to take on these however many dudes with what I have in my hand.
Right.
But then everybody can kind of play into that if you allow. I know in one of the games we played, I think we had 9 troops in the area that we were in.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, and we were able to defeat all of them without taking any wounds, just from doing some multiple kind of shenanigans.
Right, but again, that caused a lot of us to have to use cards who then got discarded.
Yeah,
and moved us closer to a flip. So, yeah, again, the win condition is you find the right door out. If you pick the wrong door, game's over and you lose. Yeah. If the boy makes it all the way to the end, you lose. Unless you're the traitor, in which case you've turned your back on humanity or whatever, and hooray for you.
Hope you're proud of yourself.
Yeah. Let's talk about the score. And we'll start with general value.
Yeah, so the version you can get now is $70 on their website. It is the non-Boogeyman edition. It comes with your standard components as well as your standees. There are a couple miniatures in there, one for the boy and one for the Boogeyman. And you get the large plastic coin, which we recommend using that one anyway, just because that metal one's hefty. It's going to hurt somebody.
Yeah, you break a window with that thing. Yeah.
At $70, I think there is quite a bit of game here. And I think the production value is actually pretty good on it, even the standard edition.
Yeah, with the standees and stuff. Yeah, I think you're getting a lot of play. I think the fact that there are actually 10 different heroes that you can choose from to play. And like I said, each of those are different. So the group that you have could really change the gameplay. On top of that, the fact that you're putting different encounters down every time and the locations are going to be different every time definitely makes it something that you don't know what you're going to get.
Yeah, I think you can definitely add in replayability and things like that for sure high, just because of, like you said, that ability to, you may know that those jungle spots are bad, but you don't know which ones are going to be that bad.
Right. You don't know how bad.
Yeah.
So yeah, components. I liked even the base components are mostly cardboard punch outs.
Yeah.
Right. With the little plastic standees. The only thing I'm not a fan of, and I think looking at how it's packaged, back away, because they did go to game trays for their packaging.
Yeah.
You're meant to put the standee on there, the stand, and leave it on.
Yeah.
We did notice when we were putting them on, some of them are a little tight, and they may kind of peel back the first layer of the whatever the cardboard is. It's not super noticeable, but once it's on there, don't take them off. Just leave them in there.
Yep.
They did well. The card stock, I'm really kind of a fan of.
Yeah, it's almost like a linen finish cardstock.
Mhm.
So that is really, really nice. The other thing that I really liked from our set, of course, we love miniatures. So,
So we got the one with miniatures.
yeah, I will say though, I wish they were used more than just on like that sideboard.
Right.
But I get it because your party all stays together, so there's not really need for
Right.
anything other than the standard party miniature, which I do like the party miniature.
Right.
It
Your
is very
standard
cool.
party miniature is like a flag, because remember, this is all set in World War II. It's a flag, I think, with the helmet beside it,
It's got the dog.
and then the dog on it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
It's cool. I do like that, and I like the metal coin as well. You just can't flip it.
I in the other game I played with it, I flipped it, and it wasn't that bad. I was very careful not to crush any miniatures or children,
Yeah.
or bounce it off a dog or anything.
I feel like one wrong move though, and then all of a sudden, like your boy's missing his head. You know?
Oh
what I
right,
mean?
you're walking a tightrope with this.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
we all make decisions.
But yeah, other than that, I think the components are really, really good. The board quality and all that is really what you would expect. You did mention the game trays. Of course, that's
And even the box that you pull it out of, it's a minor thing, but board game people will understand. When you take the top off of the box, the bottom of the box on each side of it, or like on two sides of it, has a cutout, so you can lift this like different components out.
yeah.
And that's huge. If you've ever tried to get something out of a box and it fits perfectly in the box,
Looking at you, Marvel Zombies.
right? You got to get your fingers in there and flex the box a little bit, or it's a pain. It's a
Yeah.
pain. Y'all know what we're talking about. But this kind of makes it really nice. I can appreciate that. I think as organizational, stuff for a game, that's great.
Yeah.
Components, solid 7.5, I think.
Yeah, I think I'd go 7.5 for sure. There were a couple things that we didn't really like about it. They were minor mostly, and they had a couple quality of life things that really were nice. So yeah, I think I'd go 7.5.
Right. And value the same. A solid 7.5 for value. You're getting a pretty good play out of this game if you're into this type of game.
Yeah, you're definitely going to get multiple gameplays out of it.
Mhm.
And even if it's the same group, you'll definitely be able to get multiple opportunities.
Yeah. So talking gameplay, like I said, I think you've got plenty of variation just in what you have in the box that you will get several plays out of this, right? I like the way the games play. I like the way that trader mechanic comes in and how easily it can move around the table.
Yeah, there was a article that I read about being able to modify this slightly to make it more of a cooperative, like a true cooperative.
Right.
So I think that option's there, even though it's not in the rule book.
Mhm.
There's not very much that leans heavily on that trader mechanic. So
Yeah. I think it's just another little element that I like that's in there, that you could have one person, possibly more, that are working against you, and you shouldn't know who they are.
Yeah.
The way that you have to keep everything secret, you have to keep everything to yourself, and the way that there are cards that will let you swap that loyalty card out.
yeah, I think that definitely adds an element that kind of takes it up a notch.
Yeah. Because we played it full cooperative, and it was
Yeah.
still a lot of fun.
So for gameplay, I think I'd probably give it an 8.
Yeah. I do like how this plays. I think it's really smooth. Everything makes sense. I feel like when I'm playing, there are things that happen that are bad, but I feel like we always as a group have options. I didn't have any of the feel bad moments.
Yeah.
Even if I knew we may pick the wrong exit out,
Yeah.
I was okay with it. Like, I was committed. This is what we were doing, and I was fine with it. There was nothing that hit me in the gut that I was, like we said, like we talk about feel bad moments. There weren't any in there.
Yeah, if you are the type of person who or has to have a game, for instance, in this game specifically, we talked about you may not be able to look at every exit before you have to choose one.
Mm-hmm.
If that's an issue for you, obviously you're not going to like this game, right? Because it's probably going to be at best, 75% chance that you're going to pick the right one.
Right.
But there may be games where it's a solid 50-50.
Yeah. Yep.
It depends on how those coin flips go, really, honestly, to seeing how much time you actually have.
Right. And again, which areas you're going to flip and which encounters you have, because they can all have an effect on that.
Mm-hmm.
You may not have the ability to peek.
Yeah.
You just may never get that card. So yeah. I am kind of I dig the chaos, so I like that. There's also one card that I'm really fond of, which is the train, the toy train. That if somebody has it, they can discard 3 cards to play it, and basically you can move anywhere on the board.
Yeah,
it's fantastic, but the artwork on it, it's just the angriest looking Thomas the Tank engine you've ever seen. It's like steampunk 40K Thomas the Tank. It's going to take you where you want to go, and it's going to run over anybody that stands in the way. Like in canon, we've all decided the last game that we played that this is the daughter of Henry,
who got walled up.
If you haven't seen that, look that up. It's horrifying for most children.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what this is. But I love that card. It's a great card to get. I think there's only one of them in the deck.
Yeah.
But when you get it, seriously increases your movement. Replayability, it's got it. Like, I think it's considerably good replayability.
Yeah. We've mentioned this multiple times now, but the way the cards get shuffled, the way they get laid out, there isn't really a set anything that happens, sort of the paths basically that connect them.
There's no way for you to build a meta on this game. I don't see it happening.
Arguably, there may be one way to go, but honestly, it really depends on if you get the peak cards or not and when you get them.
Yeah.
You know, like if you make it all the way to the exit before you find the peak encounter, then, you know, you've had to waste all that movement to get there kind of thing.
Right.
So, yeah, no, I think for replayability, I think it's a solid 8.
Mm-hmm.
There is going to come a point in time, I think, where it does kind of outstay its welcome. I wouldn't say within like 5 games at least.
No, I think it would go longer than that. Again, just make everybody play a different character. They all work so differently, and there are some of them that are really, really good, especially when paired with something else. I think that helps a lot. Overall, I think this falls right in a solid 8, 8.5. I feel like I give it bonus because, again, I really the theme feels really kind of immersive once you get into it and you're playing it.
Yeah.
I like all the artwork. Man, I feel like a teddy bear with an Enfield, all right?
Yeah, I think I'd probably give it an 8. Overall, I'm not as solidly sold on the theming as you are.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's cool, I think it's unique, but it's not like this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. I do think it would make a great RPG setting, but that's neither here nor there.
We're gonna call them up and be like, hey, y'all need somebody to write you an RPG? What's up?
we got you. But yeah, I still think it is a very solid game. One that I'm very excited that we picked up. I'm glad to have it in our collection because it didn't quite get as much buzz as some of the others that have come out. But I have really enjoyed our plays of it. And I think it's definitely one that's going to hit the table, pretty often.
And it was something that we didn't really talk about, but it is based off of a comic book series. Yep. And you can find those in hardcover or comic if you want, and kind of give you some background on it. And I think that also really helps kind of lead you into the game.
Yep.
So there you go. Stuff of Legend. Specifically ours was the Boogeyman edition, but you can find the base game out there pretty easy right now.
Yeah, you can buy like the miniatures and stuff like that as well as add-ons.
Yeah, if you have to have the miniatures, we have a support group that's going to be meeting eventually. But we feel you. We feel you.
A silent scream from a story untold. In the quiet of the night, you're walking through the shadows of a world forgotten.
So for our 3 projects today, we have a board game that is just simply of godly proportions. We've got something for people that want to spend a lot at their TTRPG table, and then we've got something for people that maybe don't want to spend so much at their TTRPG table. So let's jump in and talk about the first project over at GameFound, Reign of Hades.
Yeah, so came across this project. This is a fantastic looking board game. I'm a sucker for Greek mythology. Well, actually, probably mythology in general.
Just in general, yeah.
Yeah, and this one has it for sure. It's kind of a twist on traditional Greek mythology. Hades has taken over the power of the gods and kind of stolen it from the others.
So basically, he completed that whole Hercules arc from Disney.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is like the Marvel What Ifs.
Now it makes me wish there was like a miniature Pain and Panic in here. You know what I mean? Like that's all this game really needs. Maybe we should write the publisher here and be like, hey, can we get this as like a stretch goal?
Right.
Anyway, so in this game you play as one of the other Olympians, trying to recover your power and defeat Hades and regain your godhood.
So opening up this project, as you kind of look down at it, it's a game for 1 to 4. They said it takes 60 to 120 minutes, 14 and over. And they're really stressing this whole put the fate of Olympians in your hands. It's a cooperative campaign where you're, like you said, fighting against Hades. There's cooperation with individual responsibilities. So you're divided into 2 teams and you have to act simultaneously. Perfect 2-player game. So you and somebody else want to sit down and play it. You versus the game kind of thing. There also is a dedicated solo variant that you can play. And really one of the most important points that they bring up is it's excellent for double dates.
This is the first time I've ever seen a board game try to advertise and say that. And I love it. And I hope people do more of it. But yeah, it's kind of like a dungeon crawler. I do like the way they do the board. So it's kind of like a flip book.
Yep.
Very similar to Above and Below and those types of games that your maps are all in one book. So it kind of makes it nice and easy. A little easier to pack all together than if you have large cardboard maps all over the place. One thing I do think very interesting about this is the dice combat system. So instead of just a traditional like rolling dice, seeing what number you get, there's actually like a grid for each character that you can place the dice on to activate various powers and stuff like that. Also, as you're playing, your hero will upgrade.
Yes.
So it continues getting more and more powerful. I think that is very interesting. I like the concept. It seems a little bit different as compared to like traditional just roll your dice for numbers or for certain symbols type thing. It looks really, really cool to me. I know they have quite a few different like stretch goals, including like more Olympians and stuff like that you can get.
Yep.
So far the project seems to be doing really, really well. There's a ton of pieces with this one. So everything from miniatures, we love miniatures, to your various player boards, tons and tons of different types of tokens. So the one thing we always want to look at is storage. So they actually have a picture of the entire thing broken down. All of the cards for scenarios and characters are kept in their own little deck boxes, which I think is nice and neat. It will keep everything together. Also, it looks like they have some very nice trays planned for not only miniatures, but also for all your different types of tokens and things like that.
You can also go with the deluxe edition and upgrade a lot of your characters, as well as switch from wooden printed tokens to some of the metal ones. And I love that they have like a campaign log so you can keep track of your game. So this is kind of an ongoing thing.
Yeah, so let's talk about the different tier levels for this. So it starts in at your standard edition, which with conversion rates comes in around $82. With that is just your base stuff like your game box, your core game, and then a couple of Game Found exclusives, which include the metal coins and the small like printed skulls and the world map. Then you could go with the gameplay all in, which gives you everything from the previous tier, plus it gives you a couple extra characters, including Poseidon and Aphrodite. And I think there's a couple of the unlocked characters as well that will end up in this pledge. And that pledge comes in at $105. Next, we have the deluxe edition, which this gives you all of the core box, the Game Found exclusives, the additional Olympians. Then you get the miniature pack for the monsters, as well as some scenario boxes.
So that's one where you get the upgraded metal tokens as well. And then finally, you've got the super deluxe edition, and that comes in for about $165, and it's got all of the tokens, it's got all of the characters, as well as your monster miniature pack, your scenario boxes, extra pack of dice, all of your acrylic tokens, and then the metal ichor tokens.
Yeah, it converts the cardboard tokens to acrylic. So not bad for a game that looks, one, with the quality that this one has,
as well as the amount of gameplay that looks like it's going to be in it. There's still a few more kind of upgrades that they're unlocking too, it looks like. But there are also some really cool add-ons, like a heroic weapon and item pack, or you can get a Hades Throne dice tower, which is pretty cool. I think that's one of the ones that's like, man, if you want to go all in, let's make it happen.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. So this one definitely looks really interesting. If you're into Greek mythology, check it out. A lot of lore here, and a lot of cool monsters and things like that you would know and love.
Right. Gameplay looks really good. It has 16 days left from time of recording. All right, next up. Anybody that has sat down at a TTRPG table in the last 5 years, especially, I think has seen this rebirth of miniatures on the table, right? Where the game moves away from more of the role-playing and more into the tactical aspect. So there's lots of minis out there. There's lots of options for minis. There's painting minis. There's pre-painted minis. With all that going on, anybody that runs a game or plays pretty regularly knows that sometimes it's hard to find the mini that you want, right? Like, especially if you have somebody that comes up with a crazy character that's a weird race that isn't real popular, and they're going to do something completely unconventional. It's hard to find, like, a barbarian satyr. It just is. Some people thought they would take a swing at fixing that problem, and we're going to talk about the Doppel, bringing your RPG character to life. This gadget, doodad, piece of technology, I don't know.
So if you haven't seen this on your social media feeds, then you're probably not following the same circles we are. This has been everywhere. They ran huge ad campaigns for this product. I'm not sure where I fall on it yet, honestly.
Yep.
I think it's interesting. I think some people will love it. Obviously, some people have loved it with over 1,000 backers and $167,000 raised. Some people are all in on this. But for me, I'm not quite sure. So what it is a small box, basically, that stands about twice as high as a normal mini, and a little bit wider on the base. But it has two screens, one on each side, that you can display whatever artwork that you want to on these screens for your character.
Right.
It also has a speaker in it, so you could put your character's battle cry or, theme music. I don't know, whatever you wanted to put in there, you can put in there. And then you can bring it, put it on the board. That can be the representation of your character.
Right. It's also got like LED lights around the bottom of it. So like how we use like rings sometimes to mark if something's like doing concentration or if there's an effect or something, you can change the color of that ring. Mm-hmm. Overall, I like the idea, right? Like they've been working on this thing since like 2016. It's all controlled through an app on your phone. You charge it up. The battery lasts like 8 hours, so it should make it through at least one game session. And like I said, you can put anything you want on it. So you always have the right mini that you want.
Yeah.
I love that idea. I'm completely behind it. I love that it has sound. All of that seems really great. Like if you show up at game night, if you go to Adventure League and drop this on the table, who's big man now? What's up?
Yeah, I definitely think this is. Some people are going to love this product.
Yes.
And rightfully so. I think it's got a lot of really cool things with it. To me, it almost kind of breaks the immersion with the other miniatures. But I don't know. I would have to see one on the table and physically like be there with it,
Right.
Versus just looking at like Kickstarter photos and things like that.
So a normal miniature right now stands like 28 to 30 millimeters tall.
Yep.
Is kind of the standard. This thing's like 80 millimeters tall, 25 millimeters wide, and like 30 millimeters in depth. So it's chunky. Like seeing it on a map with a grid, you can see that it is larger than other minis. So I don't know how that would affect, like, some of us have OCD issues.
Yeah.
And that may be able to throw stuff off. I kind of like it as having it handy for, boss fights, big bads. I don't have to get a new mini for every one of those.
Yeah,
I can just drop the
that
Doppel.
is very cool.
Yeah. But like you said, some people may see it like it's a little bit of a gimmick, but it's a really cool gimmick.
I mean, to be fair, the artwork that you're going to have on that screen is probably better than most paint jobs that people are going to be able to do on their minis. So there is that.
Yeah.
It's also, like you mentioned, going to be more unique for character options that maybe are difficult to find a mini for, or even outside of printing your own minis, because we've even ran into that before where nobody's just made a file out there yet for, like you said, a satyr barbarian, or maybe you have a halfling that wants to use a boomerang
Right.
and ride a mechanical dinosaur. Like, these are all things that this could really help out with. So let's talk about pricing on it.
So right now, what's available starting out is the early bird is still out there, and it's for $109 for a single doppel. You're basically saving about 45% of the MSRP. They've got several different colors that you can pick from now too. There's a matte white, matte black, silver, metallic black, and then I think they just unlocked the blue and the green stretch goals. But that's for your single one. For $158, you can get the doppel, and it's got like a charger box with it, kind of like how they do like earbuds now, right?
Yeah.
Like you charge the box, put your stuff in there, and it'll charge. You step up again, still getting early bird discounts here. You can get 2 doppels for $219, and then 2 doppels and their charger boxes for $316.
Yeah, it still looks like you can get there's still a 4x early bird and a 6x early bird and an 8 times early bird. All for various amounts of money, $439, $659, and $879, all 45% off of their MSRP.
Like I said, they've been working on this idea since June of 2016. They launched the Kickstarter in March of this year, and they're expecting estimated shipping begins November of 2024. So this isn't one you're going to have to wait a long time on.
No, that's actually very strong. If they can manage it, you're talking about shipping by Christmas. That's pretty good.
Oh,
yeah.
Somebody's got stocking stuffers. Like we said, it's already funded. They asked for $10,000 to start with, and they're like at $168,000. 23 days to go as of right now. If you're the type of person that likes gadgets, which I'm not gonna lie, it's calling to me in Christmas tones.
With a little bit of jingle bells.
With a little jingle bell. Yeah. You can find the doppel over on Kickstarter. If you're not into gadgets and you're like, it's kind of cool, maybe not for me. I do like having things for my table. How about having things for your table that you can eat?
So I have a story about semi-related to this. The first game of D&D that I ever ran for people, it was for people who have never played D&D before, and it was for 6 of them. And I get everything together, and I get to the table and realize I don't have any miniatures. I don't have anything. I have absolutely nothing to represent these people's characters on the table. But you know what I do have? A 2-pound bag of gummy bears from Walmart. Needless to say, we were running Lost Mines of Fandelver. There were a lot of gummy goblins that were eaten that day. What we're talking about here is Gummy Quest. So it is a project over on Kickstarter where this company has created molds for all, maybe not all, but a lot of your favorite RPG monsters that you can use on the table. And then, of course, once they're defeated, whoever defeats them gets to eat the delicious prize.
Right. And they've got some on here, too, for, I guess, would be player characters. They've got their own names. There's the Paladin Pina Colada, the whimsical Watermelon, who looks very bardish. There's Bloodberry, who looks like a barbarian. They have Subterranean Spice, which is a purple worm. That's one of the larger minis. Sapphire Blast is your dragon gummy mini. There's the Sour Lime Slime, the axe-wielding Orange Orc. Just really cool. Owlberry is hilarious.
Yeah.
Palm Eye Grant is a beholder. I love they give them all these cute little names. And then there's one mini that's just death. So if for no other reason, I just want to know what death tastes like.
Don't we all?
Yeah.
Don't we all? They also have dice that are gummy form as well as little potion bottles. So those are really cool. Right now, a treasure chest of flavor is what they're calling their kind of packaging. It's 151 gummies in every box. All right, so it's 76 monsters, 15 heroes, 25 of the potions, and 35 dice. So my question is, if your dice rolls bad, do you just eat it, or does it still go in Dice Joe?
Yeah, you just don't tell your regular dice that, so they get scared. They're like, man, he just ate that dude.
But yeah, this one looks really cool. So they have reached a lot of their stretch goals. And I want to say they did put a gelatinous cube in their stretch goals. So I mean, I think that's fantastic. Looks like there's a griffin, maybe a succubus might be.
That's what that looks like. Yeah.
Like a frost giant. And then a biblical realistic angel, which I think is hilarious for any of you who know that meme. So yeah, there's a lot of really cool stuff here. I like what they're doing. I think it's something that is unique. Somebody putting this together as like a full package. Like I think in my head I've seen something like this before,
right?
But never so completely done as well as this is.
Yeah, that's what the thing that I really like about this one is they look far more detailed than the last ones we looked at.
Yep.
So you can get the single boxes, 151 gummies. There are still a couple of the like real early pledge rewards available. So you're looking at getting a box for like $40 right now. You can get the 2-pack for $68. They go to like a 4-pack. Then they have the Gummy Quest Gummy Creator Kit for $165. So they're going to actually send you the molds, the gummy mix, and all the essentials that you need for creating your own colors and flavors.
So this tier was tempting.
And they're selling it too. It's perfect for creating gummy monsters and adding your own ingredients. Wink, wink. The Kickstarter exclusive kit invites you to embark on a unique and tasty flavor creating adventure.
We all know they're talking about weed.
Right? Like I get it.
They should have just put a tree emoji in there.
Yeah, right?
You know what I'm saying? Like it might as well have been the same thing. But yeah, if that's, your jam, definitely we have this fantastic little creator kit that you can roll with. But yeah, I think it's really cool that they're opening that up to the people who are buying.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. And it looks like 210 people have taken advantage of that already. I just picture an RPG game that like you open up, because I mean you're talking usually like a 4-hour session, right?
Right.
You open up the session with combat, right? And they kill all these like little dudes or whatever. Everybody eats the gummies. Everybody's happy. By the time you get to the end, when you drop like a big dude on them, nobody's gonna know what to do. It's gonna be fantastic. Like,
talk about really just evil DM plans.
Yeah.
So, and then, of course, they've got add-ons too. You can add like an extra one for $10. They have a sugar-free option.
Yep.
125 extra potions for like $10. You can get 175 extra gummy dice for like $15. This can bring a lot of fun to the table, especially if it's a brand new group or it's people that are not normal gamers that like sit down at the table. I think this is the kind of thing that'd be cool for a first-time experience too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is a fantastic, not super expensive way to kind of bring some fun to your table. Especially maybe you're just starting out and don't have any miniatures yet. This might be a way to get you started.
So right now there's 22 days left as of time of recording. That's already funded. So go get your gummies. All right. And with that, so how many of my clues are in row 4?
The last question of the game moves around the table.
You have 0 solutions in this row.
You have 3 solutions in row 4.
You have 1 solution in row 4.
Oh no, my grid's wrong.
The players reveal their guesses.
Wrong guesses have cost the group, and now that player is the last to guess their evidence.
Is it a potion?
Yes! And the table goes wild.
Woo! For the Dapper Meeple, I'm Josh.
And I'm Jim. Good night, everyone.
Thanks, everyone, for sticking around and listening to our show.
If you enjoyed it, let me ask you a favor. Follow us and leave a like wherever you get your podcast. It'll really help us out.
And if you have anything to say back to us, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook by searching for the Dapper Meeple. Or you can email us at dappermeeplegaming@gmail.com.
And as always, we'll save you a seat at the table.